Can you hear me? Is that working?
Yeah, sorry about that, Jordan. I'm going to have to look into what Zoom's changed that they don't let us do that anymore. But you'd think 2 years into this, I could figure it out.
Yeah, it happens. We'll be able to do these in person soon enough.
Yeah, well, I saw you recently, which was nice.
That's right. Yeah, it was good to see you down at the conference there, and got quite a few coming up. So yeah, looking forward to doing this in person. Let me just get my screen.
Yeah, for sure. I'll do an intro while you load up your presentation. So for the audience, next presenting is Jordan Trimble, who's CEO of Skyharbour Resources, who has a pretty large portfolio of uranium assets, many of which are in the Athabasca Basin, along with our other presenters. They have a bit of a hybrid model, being both an explorer and developer and a prospect generator. Jordan, did I butcher the intro?
No, you've done a great job. So thanks everyone for tuning in to the Skyharbour portion of the presentation. Tim, great presentation. Lauren, wish you were here. Great presentation. Hard to follow up on. Looking forward to the panel. And Deb, thanks for putting this on. It's for a great cause. I certainly think it's topical right now too for investors to really look at jurisdiction and security of supply. Obviously, the three companies here being Athabasca Basin centric uranium companies. So without further ado, I'll work my way through the presentation. I'm sure a number of people watching or tuning in know the story. One thing I do want to highlight is this year for Skyharbour is going to be a very pivotal year. So for those of you that do follow closely, you'll see we've had a fair bit of news flow. And a big part of that is these partner companies, as Deb pointed out, this hybrid model is a quasi prospect generator. But I do want to emphasize that we've got our flagship Moore Lake project that we're advancing. We're just wrapping up a winter drill program there. We have a multi-phase program and drilling planned at that project for the remainder of the year. We're making serious progress there, in particular in these underlying basement rocks and some notable high-grade recent holes that we've announced over the last year to 18 months. This year will be the busiest. It'll be the most catalyst rich. I think the number right now for us is about 15,000 meters that's drilling that's either currently underway or has been completed by us and our partner companies. Assays pending. We're pretty excited with what we've been seeing and what the partner companies have been seeing, some of these other projects. So we have multiple irons in the fire and plans to go and work, continue working, as I mentioned, our flagship Moore Lake project, but also partners funding these other properties. Just as a recap, overview for the company. So we are a high-grade exploration story. Really our main objective and the main value proposition for shareholders is high-grade discovery in the basin. We're at the earlier parts of that relative to our counterparts here. We're a smaller cap name, but we're well on our way, I believe, to making additional discoveries in the Athabasca Basin, whether it's at one of our core projects, at our flagship Moore Lake project, or at one of our partner-funded projects. So the 14 projects range from earlier stage exploration right through to more advanced stage exploration. Two of them do host resources. One of them, our flagship, as you'll get into the presentation, we're actively advancing right now. We're working towards a maiden resource estimate, updated resource estimate there. Our South Falcon Point project, we own 100% of. There's an inferred resource there. And then the other projects are a bit earlier stage. And as Deb pointed out, we have a dual-pronged strategy. So again, high-grade exploration discovery at our core projects coupled with prospect generation. I will just note we've been around for a while. I think that's important right now. There's new companies coming into the basin, coming into the fold. We've been here since 2013. We've been very opportunistic and accretive in building this asset portfolio. We just added a number of properties back in December as well that offer exposure to other parts of the basin and also provide more inventory for us with potentially new partner companies. So there's lots to talk about. I'll get right into it. Forward-looking statements, let people read this on their own time. Investment highlights. So people, timing, and projects. These are really the three core pillars of Skyharbour. People being the technical team with focused expertise in the Athabasca Basin in making these high-grade discoveries in the basin. The management team, we have lots of years of experience. We've just added to the team recently and over the last few years. There's a good mix of technical geological expertise on that management team, as well as corporate and capital markets experience. Also, I like to highlight our strategic partners and our long-term loyal and larger shareholders, which we'll talk a bit more about later in the presentation. Timing. So timing with the uranium market. Warren did a great job with that here, so I won't get into it too much. There's a few slides that cover it off, and I'll make a few talking points, but I really do believe we're in the early innings of what is a sustainable bull market for uranium going forward. I think we're going to see several years of price moves higher and higher. One quick note on the market is we're seeing a bit of a pullback. We've seen this over the course of the last 18 months. I think it provides great entry points for investors going forward. I think there's still a lot of runway ahead of us. And then last but not least, projects. 14 projects, as I mentioned, scattered throughout the Athabasca Basin. One of the larger land packages. We're now at about over 385,000 hectares. Dual-pronged strategy. We're advancing several of these projects, and/or partner companies are. And so there's a lot of optionality, and there's good potential for additional discoveries and resource delineation at these projects. So we believe there's a lot more value to be unlocked at this asset base over the coming years. Just moving on. So starting with the people. So management team and board. I'm sure most of you are familiar with us. I started running the company in 2013, coming from an entrepreneurial and finance background. My chairman, Jim Pettit, and I sold a company called Bayfield Ventures prior to this, and him and I have worked together for about a dozen years. Jim's been in the industry now for over 35 years. He's the chairman of the board. Dave Cates is a director, very important key member of the board. He's the president and CEO of Denison Mines. Most of you, I'm sure, familiar with Denison. We have a very close working relationship and strategic partnership with Dave and his team. They're one of our largest corporate shareholders and strategic shareholders, and Dave personally is quite a large shareholder of the company as well. More recently, we added some more capital markets bench strength with Joe Gallucci. So Joe is now the head of investment banking at Laurentian Bank. He's worked with a handful of uranium companies throughout his tenure. He knows the space very well, and again, brings us that extra strength when it comes to capital markets. So happy to have him join as a director a few years ago. Dave Bayard, Christine McKechnie, and Dylan Drummond. So these are our geologists, Dave being our senior geologist. Dave's worked in the basin for over 40 years now. He was a 12-year senior geo at Cameco before starting building and ultimately selling his own uranium company, JNR, with his partner, Rick. So Dave's been around. He's worked extensively on a few of the projects that we have in our portfolio, and really is a crucial part to advancing these projects, and again, has very much focused expertise in uranium exploration in the basin. Christine joined us about 6.5, 7 years ago. She's now a senior project geologist. Christine, again, cut her teeth at Cameco. She's worked with several uranium companies in the basin, and she actually wrote her award-winning thesis at the University of Saskatchewan on one of our deposits, the Fraser Lakes Zone B deposit, our South Falcon Point project. A very strong technical team. Just a few others to round out the board and advisory board. Paul Matizik joined as an advisor several years ago. Really needs no introduction. He's built and sold a handful of mining companies, including his Energy Metals, which he sold for $1.8 billion in 2007 to Uranium One. And then just recently, we announced the addition of a new officer, Senior Vice President of Corporate Development, Andrew Ramcharan, based out of Toronto. Andrew's a 20-year veteran in the industry. He was the Corp Dev Manager for IAMGOLD, and prior to that, he was at SRK, where he worked with a handful of uranium companies, including Uranium One, UR Energy, and Uramin, which was ultimately sold to Areva at the time for $2.5 billion. So moving on, so the capital structure, 133 million shares issued and outstanding, market cap ranging. It's been fluctuating. We've obviously seen some volatility in the market, trading around a 70 to $75 million market cap, share price in the low to mid 50s here Canadian, well funded with just under 8 million in the treasury. We'll note that covers us for our exploration plans at our Moore Lake project and South Falcon Point for the remainder of this year, while we have partner companies funding the bulk of the exploration at our other several of our other projects. Within that too, though, we do have equity holdings in some of these partner companies. And this is, again, one of the benefits of this prospect generator business that we've been building is we do offer exposure to some of these partner companies, not just through a minority interest ultimately in the project, but also through equity holdings in these companies. Notable and strategic shareholders, so management and insiders, we have a lot of skin in the game. I've been pretty actively purchasing shares through private placements and in the open market over the last several years. Denison Mines, as I mentioned, our largest corporate shareholder. You'll see several notable institutional investors as well, rounding out the list, and then both of the uranium mining ETFs just recently being included into the URA. So we have a few slides here. As I mentioned, I won't spend a lot of time on this, want to work our way into the projects, but just a quick note on the industry. So, nuclear industry, really like to think of it as being at the nexus of two major mega trends globally right now. One being electrification. The world needs more electricity, and going hand in hand with that is clean energy. It is the only source of baseload, scalable, affordable electricity that's emissions free. And as Warren pointed out, it's going to play an integral role in the energy mix going forward. We have a couple notes here on SMRs as talked about earlier. But moving on to the uranium market itself. So we see here, it really is, and I think this gets overshadowed by the supply side a little bit, but this still really is a growth story. You'll see there with the need for more clean electricity. Nuclear is going to continue to grow, and the demand for uranium is going to continue to grow. Over 440 operable reactors, over 50 reactors under construction, and many hundreds more ordered, planned, or proposed. We've talked about the supply deficit. You'll see here, UxC estimates cumulative supply gap by 2029 of approximately 340 million pounds. We burn through a lot of these secondary inventories as the demand for this commodity and this metal continues to grow, and we just haven't seen that new abundance of supply come on to meet that growing demand. The big, I'd say, talking point more recently with this as well is uncovered demand and this new contracting cycle. We've seen over the last several months and announced by Cameco some pretty significant contracting over the course of the last 12 to 18 months. And really think, again, we're at the early stages of this new procurement cycle, which historically has been one of the biggest drivers for this metal price. And I think in this cycle, we're, again, still in the early days of that, but that's where I think we'll see a big boon for the uranium price going forward. Just to go through globally what's happening, as I'm sure a lot of people know, China's really at the forefront of the growth here with 150 new reactors planned over the next 15 years. That's more reactors coming on in China than has come on in the last 35 years globally. We talked a little bit about geopolitical tensions and conflict globally. Obviously, there's major implications, as Russia is a big player in this industry, and I really don't think we've seen the full ramifications of that. It's certainly positive being a North American or Australian uranium company, and as pointed out, the Athabasca Basin in northern Saskatchewan really is the best place in the world to be looking for developing and mining these deposits. I'll move on here to this slide is before we quickly get into the projects, and this is pertinent for this because we've seen over the last 10 years the kind of wealth and return potential, wealth creation return potential that these high-grade uranium discoveries have created in the Athabasca Basin. Now, I will note a number of these discoveries have been made in declining uranium price environments. And so as we work our way into this bull market, it'll be interesting to see if we can uncover new high-grade deposits or delineate these high-grade resources in the basin, what kind of return potential we're going to see. There are some new techniques and exploration methodologies that are being employed. We're certainly at the forefront of that, and that's really brought the discovery price and cost down for these high-grade uranium discoveries in the basin. So finishing off here with the project portfolio, this is an updated map of our projects in the Athabasca Basin, and you'll see here 14 properties, 385,000 hectares, so just under 1 million acres of projects, again, scattered throughout the basin. You'll see we've now got exposure not just to the north side or to the south side, but to the north side as well. Most of the projects, including our flagship Moore Lake project, are on the infrastructure-rich east side, the Athabasca Basin. You'll see Moore Lake here, about 15 kilometers east of Denison's Wheeler project. You've got the road, the haulage road up to MacArthur, just west of the project, and Key Lake just southwest. South Falcon Point also I want to draw people's attention to. So South Falcon Point, we own 100% of it. It does have an NI 43-101 inferred resource. We are planning programs there this year, coupled with our ongoing exploration at our Moore Lake project. So just because I know we have limited time here, I'll work my way through the projects as quickly as I can here. So Moore Lake we acquired in 2016. This is a high-grade advanced stage exploration project that we acquired in 2016, started working on it in 2017. You'll see it's had a lot of historical exploration, some notable high-grade drill results. And I think this is a big differentiating feature for Skyharbour at our current market cap relative to other companies that are smaller cap that are operating in the basin. Is you'll see some of these very high-grade drill results. Now, what's exciting about this project is when we acquired it, most of that historical work had been focused on shallow drilling in the sandstone or down to the unconformity. So the basement rock and a lot of regional targets were relatively untested. Now, not to take away from what we found or what historically has been found in the sandstone, you'll see here when we went back in 2017, some of our first drill holes, we encountered some of the highest grade mineralization, 21% over 1.5 meters within 6 meters of 6%. Again, sandstone hosted. We don't want to take away from this because as we're seeing with some of these new mining methods in the basin that are being proposed, ISR and Sabre, these shallower sandstone hosted deposits could be quite interesting. But more recently, what we've been focused on is the basement rocks. And with the help of some new geophysical techniques, some new geological modeling, just in the last year, we've been able to target some higher grade zones, new discoveries in the underlying basement rocks at this 5 kilometer long Maverick corridor. In particular, a new zone that we discovered called the Maverick East Zone. And you'll see in the results from 2021, our best and highest grade drill results from these underlying basement hosted zones, 6.8% over 2 meters. And we're also seeing some very long intersections, 15 to 20 meters of 0.5% to 1% in these basement rocks. So relatively untested. We feel like we're onto a much larger zone or deposit of uranium in these underlying basement rocks. But we also have about a dozen other targets, high priority regional targets at the project that we're going to be doing a little bit of work on as we continue to advance this project going forward. I mentioned South Falcon Point, again, on the southwest or southeast side of the basin. We have a small inferred resource there, certainly getting more interesting given it's right at surface and we have a higher uranium price. We are planning a small program there. We'll have news out on that forthcoming. And then just wrapping up, the prospect generator business, as I mentioned, this has become a bigger part of the Skyharbour story. You'll see here, total exploration expenditures, cash payments, share issuances from our now 5 partner companies, one of which is a joint venture partner in industry leader Orano at our Preston project. Azincourt, we now have a joint venture partnership with at our East Preston project. They've just wrapped up 5,000 meters, some very interesting looking mineralization and radioactivity in some of the drill core there, assays pending for all of those holes. And then more recently, our 3 newer option partners in Basin Uranium Corp, Valor Resources, and Madero Mining. So you'll see the money being spent, pretty significant amount of exploration to the tune of almost $20 million being funded by partner companies. Most of these companies still in the early days or early years of these earn-in agreements, potentially over 10 million in cash payments. And last but not least, the share issuances. So we continue to receive shares and equity in these partner companies as they earn in on these projects. As I mentioned, I'll just wrap up here. As I mentioned, East Preston, 5,000 meters by Azincourt, assays pending. Hook Lake, our partner Valor, just completed just under 2,000 meters, assays pending on that drill program. And at our Mann Lake project, Basin Uranium Corp has just commenced a 6,000 meter drill program there. So again, like I said earlier, this is going to be our busiest year. It's going to be full of catalysts and news flow, lots of drilling, lots of potential for discovery. Just wrapping up with the recent milestones and upcoming catalysts. So, biggest one remains continued drilling and exploration at our more advanced stage projects, including our flagship Moore Lake project. We continue to intersect high-grade mineralization, working towards an updated resource estimate. We'll have a multi-phase drill program fully funded this year at Moore. Exploration and drilling funded by partner companies, as I just went through. Look for us to form additional option agreements and JV partnerships with new companies coming into the basin. There is money out there, as we've seen over the last year and a half, and we do have a lot of inventory. New project acquisitions, we are in an acquisitive mode right now. Keep an eye out for news flow on that. And last but not least, uranium market recovery. Again, still, I think in the very much the early innings. As a smaller cap company, we do offer leverage to that rising uranium price, as well as the exploration and discovery potential at our project base. So I'll hand it over, went a little bit over time there, but I'll hand it back over to you, Deb. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Jordan.